Insurance agents from around the world, welcome to the Insurance Guys podcast. My name is Scott Howell, your fearless host and leader, insurance agency owner and insurance evangelist for I Protect Insurance and Financial Services, based out of Huntsville, Alabama. And before we get started on today's episode, please help me welcome. He is a 6'3" sophomore from Mobile, Alabama. Parade first team All-American, Rivals 5-star recruit. He is a fantastic insurance agent and a great American. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome the incomparable Mr. Bradley Flowers. How are you, Bradley?
I'm great, Scott. How are you?
Got
Other
a big
than
problem.
Losing my voice.
Got a big problem.
Okay.
So we have been batch filing today, and I've had my phone on airplane mode, and we got off just a few minutes early on our last podcast that we recorded, and I walked outside and looked at put my phone off of airplane mode, which was my first mistake.
Yeah, that was
Second mistake was checking my emails, which when I hit the Gmail app, logo, it just never ended with new email. Just probably 200 emails. And I looked down and I had an email from American Airlines. I thought,
no.
well, Americans checking me in. These folks are doing the right thing, and they've heard. I know they haven't heard the podcast where I talked about them being the worst airline in the history of mankind. But I opened up the email, and it said, "Need to get ready for your trip tomorrow. You are flying out at 11:30 a.m. from Huntsville, Alabama to Dallas, Texas." Now, I'm not real good at geography. I barely scratched the 8th grade. But, Bradley, can you tell the fine podcast listeners where I'm sitting right now?
You're in Mobile, Alabama.
That's a problem.
However, I actually have your flight details here.
Okay.
And so Shelby, when you sent her the flight,
Sure.
she added it to my calendar just so I would know when you're leaving, because I'm a control freak. And it says you're flying out of Mobile, so you might better get with them on that.
Do those some bitches do anything right?
Dude,
Is there
American
one?
is awful.
Okay, let's think about this for a second. Is there one thing? With any company, you can usually laser point zero in on, hey, these guys do this really well. And I'm sitting here thinking,
I don't know,
that American Airlines may not do anything well. Nothing.
Their planes are slightly nicer than Delta.
Not the ones I was on Sunday. Boy, them sons of bitches were like.
Yeah.
I'll tell you how old the planes were.
Well, you're going Huntsville, Atlanta to Mobile, so those were puddle jumpers.
Correct.
Those are real small.
I went Huntsville, Charlotte this time. Remember, I went to the Oscar the Grouch airport.
Yeah, yeah.
And for those of you that don't remember Oscar the Grouch, he used to, when Sesame Street was actually on television, lived in a garbage can.
Right.
And then after Sesame Street, he got evicted by the landlord of his garbage can, so he moved to the Charlotte International Airport, where he has taken up residence, and it looks like an abandoned warehouse from 1934. And to this day, I'm still wondering how the hub of banking in the United States of America, for a long time, Charlotte was known as that, boy, if you're in banking, you got to be. How on earth you have an Oscar the Grouch airport in Charlotte is mind-numbing to me. But
here's what American does well.
Okay.
I'll tell you what American does well. When you fly first class with Delta, very, very, very few planes have the lie flat seats.
Correct.
And I usually exclusively fly Delta, but with Delta in first class, usually it's just a little bit bigger seat.
Right.
That's it. With American, you in the first class and United, you have a few more lie flat planes than you do with. That would be the only
endearing quality of.
Yeah. So
wow. Okay, guys, we've got a very special guest on today. I'm excited to have him on the podcast because I love talking about technologies. This podcast exists for one reason and one reason only, and that's to help you insurance agents any way we can. One of the three-legged stool that we have built this podcast on, we have thought leaders and great insurance agents in here to talk up to you guys about, hey, here might be something you want to try. Just try it, see if it makes your agency a little bit better. Move the ball one step forward to greatness, right? The other leg of that stool is we try to have some motivational people in here to talk to you about, hey, I know what you're going through. I've been through a lot in my life. Here's how I got through it. But then the third leg of this podcast is technologies. And as I have always said since day numero uno, don't care if you use it, don't care if you don't use it, but it's my job as a podcaster in the insurance industry for majority property and casualty agents is to introduce that technology, let you go out and look at it and say, yeah, this is a technology that could move the ball one step forward to greatness, or nah, we got something similar to that and this just doesn't work for us. I don't care. But we've got somebody on here today that I want to introduce and give him the introduction he's always deserved. And if you go out and look at what he's doing, you may very well decide that this is something that can help you move that ball one step forward to the finish line, the goal line. So without further introduction, he is originally from Hyderabad, India, and he currently resides in Greenwich, Connecticut. He's a graduate of Thunderbird School of Global Management, which is now a part of Arizona State University. And he has been a senior insurance industry executive, best known as the founder and former CEO of Risk Match, which grew dramatically under his leadership from a startup company in 2013 to become the commercial insurance sector's most widely used analytical platform. Before establishing Risk Match, he held positions of increasing managerial responsibility with Marsh, culminating as a managing director, strategy and operations for the firm's U.S. global risk management business. And he established and led many of the firm's strategic units and business tools, including the analytical unit, the global risk benchmarking platform, and Market Connect, a proprietary service for insurance carriers. He has also managed the National Industry Practice Leaders operation. He today is the founder and CEO of Ennabl, Inc., an open platform for insurance brokers and carriers, and he is an advisor to various insurtech companies and on the board of directors of the 1970 Group. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my profound honor today to introduce to you first-time guest on the IGP, Mr. Kabir Syed. How are you, Kabir?
Fine, thank you, Scott. I do see the energy. You were right about that.
He can
Very
muster it
professional.
up every now and then.
So, Kabir, I'm going to say this to start. You have, and I didn't even get a chance to say some things I'm about to, you have quite the resume of success in your life. You have done a lot, seen a lot, been a part of this industry for a long time. And I do want to add, and I meant to add this towards the end of your bio, but you were an inventor of count them, 3 U.S. patents, and systems and method for determining opportunities and peer information for insurance policies. And then there's 2 others on here that are somewhat similar, systems and methods for facilitating an insurance marketplace for negotiations among brokers and insurance carriers. Here's my question to you after having all these years of experience. What's the biggest change that you've seen in the industry? It can be technology or otherwise. Since you started in the insurance industry, what have been some of the biggest changes that you've noticed that are marked changes that you've seen in the industry?
Yeah. Great question, Scott, and thank you for having me, Scott and Bradley.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you for having me on this podcast. So if you look back 30 years, the first big dramatic change was email.
Yeah.
And to this day, that is the most widely used thing, not systems, it's email. We have not progressed beyond that, but what is coming is going to impact us much better in terms of whether we use specific systems or not. I would say the coming of AI, making it cheaper and making it easily available to small companies like us, like what Bradley has, that is a dramatic change. We have made it. I mean, it's become so cheap to use now, and we would be foolish not to get ready for that change.
Unbelievable.
Where do you think we are with AI? Are we Web 2.0 pre-crash, with pre-bubble with AI? Are we, because there's a lot of noise out there. It seems like every single tech company the day after ChatGPT launched added a .ai after their domain, right? And there's a lot of people promoting AI stuff that's just ChatGPT wrappers and all that sort of stuff. Like where do you think we are? Are we at the genesis of it? Are we still incredibly early? Or are we even earlier than earlier, and there's just a lot of noise and everybody's just trying to figure out how it's going to be used?
So my point of view, and from what I see in insurance and other spaces, I do invest a lot. We are at a very, very infant stage.
Bradley, you said that yesterday, actually.
Yeah.
Very, very. And I don't think we should use it yet. I think we should get ready for it.
Right.
And the reason I say that is it's not being tested and doesn't know first-party data like what we have. And it'll get cheaper. So it's a race to literally zero. That's where it is going. And there'll be many models which will come. So part one, where you're talking of where we are at a very, very infant stage today. Where it can go, it's dramatic. However, you're talking of the hype is in terms of the stocks.
Right.
So that hype is absolutely there. Whether it is, and that's why every company is saying, I'm an AI company, .ai. Companies that we bought today and yesterday, there's very little AI that we use today. It started with machine learning and then neural networks, and then you have generative, and we are already plugging into this. The pace at which it is changing is dramatic. It's not happened before.
Right.
Usually it takes a few years and then it develops agentic AI and things like that. I don't think we are ready, both in terms of where we can use it and how we can use it, because we're using it to say, I'll ask a question. I'll ask it to write an email. Great.
Right.
But that's not why you see the bubble, right? It can book things for you. It can do things for you. But what we are not recognizing is, if you want agents, AI, to do things for you, you'll have to give up your privacy to things.
Right.
Do we want to do that? Like, think about this. Would you let an agent or a software access your calendar, write an email for you, take money from your bank account, use a credit card, negotiate with you? Because it still doesn't know. I might say I like certain things, but I don't know what decision I'll make based on what I see on the other side. So that part is still not there. And the second part is it needs a lot of information, correct information.
Right.
And that's where we lack. AI will work fantastic in the stock market because it's commodity. When I say commodity, it's very structured. There's a ticker symbol. There are events which are there, news, and then there's a management meeting they'll talk about. So it's very documented, and there's a reason it can look forward to. I'm going to ask, so why did this client pick for the same coverage? It picked Travelers, and then the next client picked Zurich. It's not because we said these things, but maybe their appetite was different. Maybe they think that you are a better person to say XYZ. And maybe we said it because I was invited by the Travelers. I have a contingent agreement with Travelers, or I was invited to. So we don't know those things.
Yeah.
But the basic part is we still haven't had the data easily digestible. So we'll have to digest the data and say, why did we make that decision? I can tell you, if you have 2,000 clients, you won't know the reason why each of those decisions were made for a specific carrier because we didn't document it. It's sitting in people's heads. It's sitting in meetings that we have. We didn't record. It's sitting in documents. So we need to get those things together for it to work very well. And it's going to be awesome.
Can a redneck from Northwest Alabama ask two very intelligent people that are sitting in this room, actually three, because Rand's a lot smarter than I am too. Can I ask the two of you a very simple question that you're probably both going to laugh at me when I ask this, but it's something that I've not really looked into, but I need to. How do you download, and let's say a fairly large policy, maybe the policy front and back is on a two-sided paper and it's like 95 or 100 pages long, okay? How do you download that policy into a Chat GPT to analyze that policy for you? Because when I've tried, it's always been like, oh, this file's too large. How do you do that? Is there a way to do that?
I've run into that. And I'm very careful that we don't put any customer sensitive data in there.
Yes.
You just have to do multiple files and say, analyze this. Okay, now analyze this. The problem with ChatGPT is it will do what they call hallucinate, where it'll just make stuff up that's not relevant whatsoever.
Right.
And, but one thing that I think is interesting, Kabir, sort of on that note and what we were talking about at lunch, let's go back to marketing pre-social media, right? There was a lot of, SEO. It was a very advertising-driven economy, right? You purchase products that were advertised to you on, TV commercials, radio ads, that sort of thing. And then what social media did is social media sort of turned things back into word of mouth. Like, whereas before the big advertising boom of the 50s, you just asked your neighbor, hey, what do you use for this, right? Well, that's kind of what social media is now, I mean, I got on my phone during our lunch and it's, hey, I need insurance. Who can recommend, et cetera, right? What's interesting with AI is now that so many people are using it, you can, let's just use a very basic, social media example or a cold email example. You can tell immediately
right
which ones are written with AI. Like if your social media post says, in today's fast-paced world, I know ChatGPT wrote it, right? And or has emojis in or whatever. And so what's happening is it's almost putting the power back into the hands of the people who really know how to write things and code and all that sort of stuff. And I mentioned at lunch, Kabir, we had lunch with our podcast editor, Johnny, who's a big AI guy. I said, I feel like in a few years, they're going to start adding disclaimers to books that say this book was not written by AI.
Written by AI.
Right.
Right.
And to some degree, you could argue that, depending on what your prompting was and that sort of thing, like, you did write it, even though the AI put it together for you. You know what I mean? But I just see a lot of agents out there playing around with AI tools in ways that are just not productive. Like using the AI phone call answer services to be their first, like at 10 o'clock on a business day, you call the office and an AI bot's answer. Like, your customer doesn't want to deal with that.
Sure.
Yep.
And your savvy customers, and really not even your savvy customers, can tell that is what that is, and then, but now the flip side of that is, I think after hours, that's exponentially better than just getting a voicemail.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it'll be interesting to see how things shift from AI to, it almost enhances the human element to some degree right now.
You're absolutely right. Where I think it's going to go first, we started with, I want you to write an email. I want you to take a PowerPoint and make it better and things like that. And we'll get better at the prompt. You're not used to it, right?
Right.
Because think when we had email, and now it was Twitter, and then it was Instagram and things like that. So we are becoming better at if we do it over and over again. Where it'll do a very good job for a period of time is, think of our industry. We are making people essentially data monkeys. So you hire somebody, you say, it's a great career in insurance, but I'd like you to take this and type it in 80 different places, the same information.
Yeah.
Now, that is the repeatable process that a human being should not do.
Yep.
What we do very well as human beings is we can criticize or suggest enhancements because we immediately feel elevated to say, is this right or wrong? We are better at that. And let AI do the menial task of whether it's cleaning up, asking for information. But at this point, we can't trust it. So yesterday, I was with a client, and this client is a very close friend, and we both put in the exact same question. We got two completely different answers.
Wow.
The question was, what is a BDE, a bulk data extract? You know, when you want to get information back from your AMS system, you have to either buy a VPN or a BDE. So we said, what's the difference between a BDE, bulk data extract, and an API? The answer he got was, I can't repeat it on a podcast because it went completely offline. And I got an answer which said, this is XYG Energy Company.
Right.
I'm like, we're asking the same. And we both use Google, got two completely separate answs. So I'm not sure where it is coming.
We know who's been doing what on their phone.
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make is, look, it has not learned, where did I come from to ask this question?
Sure.
Like, it does not know me. It's just responding to what it has learned in that instance. And it does not know that I'm in insurance. Yeah. And my question is, well, all of our emails are in Google. Why did it not know that? Because remember, they are anyway reading emails.
Right.
So this was
by machine.
This was Gemini that you were on?
This was Gemini.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is still kind of shocking.
Yeah.
But let's say I didn't ask about this. I asked about, I have a toothache. Now, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Now, what if you say I have a toothache and it gives you a different thing versus it gives me a different thing? I'm going to say, well, here's the recommendation it gave. I'll do it. But it's not right? Because you gave two completely separate answers for the same thing. And let's try this over and over again. So the point I'm trying to make is it makes egregious mistakes today, for good or bad reasons. And we just have to be careful.
I also, this may be the conspiracy theorist in me, I don't fully trust Sam Altman's intentions.
And who is that?
The creator of ChatGPT.
Oh.
There's still I'm getting I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't fully, like, what are your intentions? You know, and you know, the whole thing about they were a nonprofit and now they're not, and that's a little bit, you know, sketchy to me. And I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. We need to start with distrust, because that's what we start in almost anything other than a human being. So why would we trust something like that? So that's one. Second part is, what is the privacy in or security in it?
Right.
If I put something, does it become part of its learning, or just according to my learning? So that's the second part that we have to think of. But there are different models, you know, whether it's Anthropic or Hugging Faces, or, you know, there are lots of them. And the price will come down. Ultimately, it's going to be very, very focused. Today, it's very general.
Yeah.
It's very, very general. But you need something that is being trained on just pure insurance, just for distribution, just for US. Because US is one of 5 countries where policies are 90 pages long because of legal issues. Right. And it is done by a broker. If you go to some other countries, it's not done by a broker. You can just buy directly most of the time. So it has to learn those things, and it's not globally applicable at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I also think, and I think this is scary, but I think humans care about data privacy and security until it becomes inconvenient for them.
Correct.
Yeah.
We will give up security for convenience.
Yes.
And I'm a guy that loves convenience, right? But I've tried to be a little bit more, you know. I ran across a company last night, actually, that, so I drive a Tesla, I ran across a company that sells a device that you plug into your Tesla. You give this device access to the external cameras on your car, and they pay you roughly 14 cents a mile in crypto to access your cameras while you're driving. And it's a they're paying for your data. They're building some kind of map or something.
Right.
And at first I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." And then I started looking into it, and I was like, "I'm not about to plug a device that I don't know who's controlling it into my self-driving car,
Right.
and giving you access." It was, but there's a lot of stuff like that I think people now. If I was broke, I might do that.
And how much do they pay?
14 cents a mile. So
wow.
it worked out to be like $50 a month if you drive the amount of miles.
That's not enough.
In crypto too. So
let me ask you this. Okay. Because you said convenience. I'm going to say money over worry of where the data is going or what might be. What if it was 60 cents a mile or $1 a mile?
I'm still skeptical.
Where you're making $1,000 a month.
One of my fears of having a self-driving car is it's a computer.
Correct.
Computers can be hacked.
Yes.
I don't want to be driving down the road with my kids in the car and this thing, you know what I mean? Like you never know.
Which there's been some of.
I don't know if anybody's hacked a Tesla. I think they're pretty.
No, I'm saying some legal cases. I know one in California where early stage Tesla, driver and passengers, and all of a sudden it just goes crazy or something.
Most of the situations when you hear about full self-drive or autopilot going off the rails, it's the driver doing something they're not supposed to.
Yeah.
They're trying to get in the back seat, or
right.
They've got there's these devices that they sell on the black market that hook to your steering wheel so you never have to touch it, and usually it's the driver doing something they're not supposed to.
Bradley, I'm going to take a reverse approach.
Okay.
We have actually given that up already.
Yeah, true.
The privacy. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
If you use Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, it's convenient. We've already given that up, so that's why.
Yeah.
Well, what about Alexa?
Yeah.
We love Alexa. So we're like, well, you can listen to everything that you want.
And there's the convenience versus privacy thing.
Right.
It's like my mother-in-law, when they, I don't want to get into a vaccine discussion, and she actually got the vaccine, but when they first started talking about the COVID vaccine, she's like, such and such on Facebook said that there's a chip in the vaccine, and I don't want them knowing. I was like, mother-in-law, what do you think this is?
Right.
I'm holding up my phone for those of you. Like,
sure,
they know where you are at all times. This, we have given that up. You're 100% right, and especially now when you think about like a home, you've got your lights on Wi-Fi, your TV on Wi-Fi. Like somebody, if they wanted to, could tell if you're home or not. But let's transition a little bit into insurance. So, like, you guys have a ton of data on insurance agencies, insurance carriers, insurance brokers, and what are some of the things that you guys know from a data standpoint that you think might surprise some of the listeners?
We manage a lot of data, just over $70 billion and 50 million policies. That's a lot of data.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think of the two large software companies, they manage just about, in insurance, about 120, 130 billion. We are 4 years old. We manage just over $70 billion. What we have seen is there is not a single client. We have 92 clients, not a single client that has correct data in their system of record. Not a single one. And they have spent egregious amounts of money to correct it.
Right.
And the problem is not with the data. The problem is with the process and the system. It's got nothing to do with the data. We need to correct those two first.
So before you got on this podcast, we had another podcast, and we were talking about data integrity, accuracy of data. And somebody, I think Scott mentioned, if your data is an A+ or an A, on a scale of A, B, C, D, E. And I said, I don't know that there is one independent agency in America that is an A.
Guaranteed. You're right. Absolutely right.
Like I would put us up against anybody because we are really on top of our data, and we're probably B minus, B plus at best.
Yeah.
And you're right. The problem is with the systems and the processes and how it gets into the systems and the carriers not being willing to adapt and all of that stuff.
It's not just the carriers. So I'll give you an example. If you think of what we spend as an industry or an agency in America, other than the people, the second biggest cost is technology. And most of that cost is with an AMS.
Yeah.
And we call AMS, I'm not trying to blame AMS, I'm just trying to say, we call AMS our system of record. When is the last time, if your data is not right in a system of record, that's why companies like us exist.
Right.
So the point I'm trying to make is if you have a bank account, and let's say it's SunTrust Bank, what if that bank account didn't say your right balance? Would you be happy with it?
No.
So why are we happy with anything else? And why do we keep spending? You're going to change, right? You can't withdraw from the bank more than $10 or 10 cents. We pay for a license. We pay to access the data that we put into the system. And then we say, oh, we need to correct it. So I'm like, well, what does the system do for us then?
Right.
As an industry, what we have done is we have bought systems to say, I'm big enough and I need this.
Right.
Whether it's an AMS or it's a CRM, but we have not said, what will it do for me as a business? It doesn't do anything because we are filling the system up and making it more indispensable to us. My point is, I think we should have focused on the process and does the system help me do it faster, cheaper, better?
Right. Yeah. We acquired 2 agencies in the last 2 years. We acquired one in January of 24 and another one a couple weeks ago. The one in January 24 had no AMS. Everything was on Excel spreadsheets.
Exactly.
The one this year was on the same AMS that we are on. And not only was he on the same AMS, he was on the same server at that AMS. So the data merge was literally the click of a button, right? I told Kenneth, my director of operations, who's kind of like over all of our data integrity, a couple weeks into this last acquisition, I said, from a data standpoint, this one was harder than the one with no AMS.
Yep.
Really?
Because the one with no AMS,
you're entering the data.
It's almost like we go to the carrier, we get an initial download, or we manually enter it. It's almost like all of those customers are starting in from scratch.
Right.
So we control how it's entered in there. Whereas with the data merge from the AMS, it's almost like, and it was a great agency. The guy that we bought out was a good friend of mine. I don't mean this negatively towards him because I think this is a common problem. And he's trying to grow and stuff. Like there was a point where I didn't give a crap about data integrity, right?
Right.
It's almost like hiring an employee and you inherit the bad habits. You know what I mean?
And then when it comes in, I could see, because you both were on the same AMS, maybe they entered something a little differently. And so when it comes in, it doesn't match to how you guys enter it.
Stuff they did a little bit differently, the way that they put certain carrier, like we're very specific in that if you have a Westchester Chubb policy and the MGA is RPS, when you go to that policy in our AMS, it's got Westchester Chubb with RPS as the MGA. What they would do is they would just put RPS as the carrier, right? Which a lot of people do that.
Happens a lot.
And then they're not using the accounting features, so then we got to go in and solve for all that because we heavily use the accounting features.
Right.
And so from a data standpoint, it was significantly easier with the one with no AMS. Wow. Now there's problems that come with that, obviously. But to some degree, it was just like significantly harder,
But the only way, because we've talked about this ad nauseum, garbage in, garbage out. And the only way to solve for this equation is you've got to cut the human part of this out of the equation, because we're going to make mistakes. And as Kabir said when we started this podcast, human beings just aren't real swift at manual data entry. But you know what is? A damn computer. Yep. You know, or a you know, something that can take that data and put it into a reasonable file of some kind, and then extract that out into your AMS in the correct spots that it's supposed to go. That computers all over that. But the Scott Howells of the world that have 400 emails, 3 employees off today, 4 customers filing water damage claims, and 6 other things going on, and his wife's sick with a parasite and needs to go to the hospital, I'm probably not going to sit there and want to do 3 hours of data entry that day.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm probably just as fast as I can and get through it. And guess what? Quarter of it's wrong. So I agree. I guess I'm agreeing wholeheartedly with you, Kabir.
Yeah. And there are 2 parts to it, right, Scott? If you think about it, why is the system not able to recognize that this is wrong?
Correct.
Why not? That's the first part, right? Because if I type in a zip code wrong, or if I put ABC, there's no ABC zip code in America. It's always numbers. And it's a 4-digit or 6-digit. Why can't it automatically correct? Google corrects, and Google is what, 25 years old?
Right.
Or 30 years old? It'll correct. You can type in whatever, you have a glass of wine, you're drunk, you type in, it'll correct it and say, is this what you're looking for?
But is part of that reason because Google's been around so long, so there's such a
AMSs have been around longer?
Yeah, that's
Same
true.
thing.
That's
exactly.
True. No, you're right.
So you
that's
can
true.
type in Ace Westchester. It's not like Ace Westchester is a new company.
Right.
It's not like RPS is a new company.
Right.
Why didn't the AMS come and say, I'm not saying whatever system you use,
right.
correct it automatically, make it easier. So that's one part of it. And the second part of it is, why do we need to ask people to do it? Mm-hmm. Can we not just buy a list of every carrier in the US or every insured? The system can do it at the back end, right?
Right.
Type it in and it'll say, is this the Kabir you're looking for? Is this the Scott you're looking for? And you can pick and say, now you have pre-filled that so that you don't make mistakes. We're asking people to do egregious amounts of data input. Mm-hmm. So we said, I don't want my account manager to do it. I'll go to the Resource Pro and Patras and Cover Desks of the world to do it. But it's the same problem. It's still human beings, still human. Just in a cheaper location.
Correct.
Yeah. I have a theory I've been working on. And I don't mean this negatively towards any of the AMSs. I'm friends with people at all of them.
Oh, 100%. A lot of them are great.
And so the question, I'm going to say the question, and then I'm going to give my theory. Okay, why have most all of the AMSs not adapted as fast as they could have with technology? And I think the reason is it is very easy to make money in insurance. That's not an easy business, but I'll give you an example. I had a friend that was looking at buying an agency not too far from here. The agency was 30 years old, and they were $200,000 in revenue. By all accounts, from the outside looking in, that agency is failing, right? If I've been in this business 30 years and I'm $200K in revenue, I'm not happy with myself, right? But the agency only had $50,000 in expenses. Wow. The guy's a one-man show making $150,000 a year in the South, where it's low cost of living. Like, hey, he's doing great. You know, it's a very easy business to make money in, especially if you do things the right way. And I think what you have is, because I'm a part of an ecosystem that I call insurance land, which is me, Scott, people like you, that we're pushing for change. But that is a very, 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 very small subset of the industry.
Yep.
If the agents aren't complaining and the agents are good with the way things are, they're good with the status quo, the way we've always done it, and don't know, why do the AMSs need to change?
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. If you ask your kids to say, hey, I want you to brush your teeth and I'll give you, do your chores, and you get $10 a week. Let's say they don't do it, but you still give $10. Why would they do it?
Right.
Correct.
We are enabling those things to say, I will still give you, but I have no choice, or I have nothing else. There are many good AMSs which are pretty tech forward, but we don't use them because they're like, well, I have to use a standard brand name.
Right.
But I'm okay to use the Alexa and Chat GPT, but I will not use something new. So it's a very weird situation in this industry where we are like, I don't want the progressive one. I'll just do the one that has been an incumbent for so long,
and it's
and
such
let me go with it.
It's such a hard thing to do too, to build a new AMS. I know several people have done it, and like it's like a couple of years ago, we tried to build our own comparative rater. We got 80% of the way there, and we ended up sunsetting it for another tool, but it was incredibly easy to pull off to get to a minimum viable product. And we weren't trying to sell it to anybody. It was just internal, similar to like what Goosehead has done. And I built it with a friend of mine, and he said, why was this so easy? And I go to some of these other commercially available raters, and I said, because when a company builds a tech tool that they're going to offer to the public, it has to hit 80% of the people. Like, they have to build it so that there's the most cross-pollination, whereas we are building this for us.
Right.
And so that's the problem with AMSs, in my opinion, or people building AMSs, is in order to do it right, you have to be super narrowly focused on who you're building it for. And then you just completely screw up your total addressable market. And so you end up with this sort of half-baked tool that, oh yeah, anybody can use this, but it's not really like, it doesn't have all the features. And then the flip side of that is you try to listen to every single agency and you try to build all those features, and you end up with this like gargantuan thing that does 80 different things. You know what I mean? And there's certain like pockets of the country where you can get away with certain things. Like my good friend CJ Hudson-Pillar in Tennessee, who's somebody you should know, by the way. He built his own AMS on HubSpot.
Nice.
But he's in a part of the country. He's personal lines only. All of his carriers download. Like, he can get away with doing that. It would be, and I'm not like down in what he's done, but like, it would be a lot harder for me to do that where I am with ENS and commercial and that sort of thing. And so that's one of the issues I see with some of these more startup AMSs is pulling that off. And to me, the only one that's really been able to do it that's a newer product is Peter over at NowCerts. They, in my opinion, have done a pretty good job. But it just gets really tough, and you have to be so narrowly focused, and then your price is driven up, and there's features missing, or you don't have accounting, you don't have certificates, et cetera.
And you've spent hundreds of hours tweaking NowCerts to get it to where Portal can use it the way you want to use it. Hey, Kabir, we've got about 5 minutes before I have to shut this thing down and go call American Airlines to see which airport I'm flying out of tomorrow. Let's talk for our remaining 5 minutes about Ennabl, and I want these agents to hear what the technology that you've designed through all your experience in the industry and the things you've done can help them with, potentially, if they so choose. What have you done here with Ennabl? What does it do? And why should they go out? And obviously, I want you to give wherever they would go. I don't know if it's Ennabl.com, but wherever they need to go look at a demo or to see what this is, so that they can make that decision. Hey, is this going to move the ball one step forward to greatness?
Yeah. No, thank you. So we shouldn't, in theory, exist. If the AMSs did the right thing, we should not exist.
Right.
We exist because there are problems. We only do two things today. We focus on data. We focus on insights. Data is, whether it's a system or a document, we digitize everything. So if you have 1,000 policies, you give it to us and we'll digitize and say, do you want us to put it into your AMS?
Right.
That's the second. I can digitize it and say, here's what it is, because the AMSs do not have fields to say, in commercial insurance especially, well, here's the limit, here's the retention, it's a panel, and the sub-limit, and then what are the coverages, and what clauses each carrier has done. So that's what we do. We are ultra focused on data. The second part we do well is, because the AMSs are not very visual. If you ask, we have clients that said, can you give me a report on a monthly basis to tell me what my business looks like? Now think about how basic of a question they are asking.
That's very general.
Very, very general, to say, what does my business look like? So the AMSs are not good with I want from a business owner's perspective
Sure.
or practice leader's perspective. They are good technologies, but they are not meant as a they didn't build it from a broker's point of view. And
Right.
that's what I'm saying, or an agent's point of view. So we make that very easy. We think like a broker, and we say, here's where you make your money. Here's where you're losing your money, because you have 18 policies with travelers for the same thing. I'm just picking travelers as an example.
Mm-hmm.
But why are these policies all over the place in terms of commission? Because that's the only way you get it. So
Right.
that's what we do, make it easy. Where we are going is we are taking over the processes of what human beings are doing. Because I'm like, why are you outsourcing it to somewhere cheaper? Technology can do it now. And that's all we do. So today we are, I call it the janitorial business of making
That's
your data
great.
clean.
Yeah.
Every day we clean the data and say, you put Bradley Flowers' name wrong. You did not, in different places, we have corrected his phone number. We have corrected carriers. We correct and enhance data by using outside sources.
Wow.
So
Okay.
what people don't have is, I don't know the premium, or nobody knows the premium other than you, the insured, and the carrier. There's nobody else outside knows the premium, right? Because there's no such thing as an average premium.
Mm-hmm.
It's very different for everything. That's called first-party data. We take the first-party data, which is premium, about the client, and things like that, make it very digestible and digitized. Then we'll say, tell me about where this company is located. Have they had lawsuits? That's all publicly available.
Mm-hmm.
So we merge those two and give it to the broker to say, now you can put AI on it. We don't care which AI you want to use.
Mm-hmm.
It is now easily digestible for your AI to do this.
And last question, and then I got to shut down. Are you doing this through an API connection? I know a lot of independent agents use HawkSoft, for instance. Or am I giving you my HawkSoft login for Ennabl and through an API connection? That's how you're connecting, or how's that working?
So if you just want us to take your data, correct it, and give you a data warehouse, you don't need to give us a login.
Okay.
You just give us access to your instance of through VPN or BDE, a bulk data extract, and we'll just access the entire data. That means every day we will take, if you have 20 years of data, we'll take it every day and clean it and push it back.
Okay.
But if you want us to correct it, then we need your instance license to push it back.
Gotcha.
And this is going to impact AMS companies in the future, because you're going to say, I don't need 25 licenses. I just need 2.
Correct.
Because you don't have 80 licenses of QuickBooks. Why do you need 80 licenses of AMS systems?
Sure.
And that's what is going to happen with AI.
And last question, and then I got to go. For agents out there listening to this that are interested in what you're saying right now, and they're like, okay, my data's screwed. I need help. I need somebody like Ennabl to come in and help me clean this data and learn what I'm doing well, what I'm not. How would they get in touch with Ennabl or in touch with yourself to go out and be able to do this, to at least take a look at it?
Easy way is ennabl.com and say, I want a demo, and it'll come to us.
Okay.
Or sales@ennabl.com.
Okay. Okay.
What's your sweet spot for agency size?
Oh, that's a great question. In fact, I
know
had that on my tongue.
Work with larger agencies.
Yes.
Yes and no. So we have 92 clients, of which 30 of them are below $7 million.
Gotcha.
Okay.
We have 20 clients below $3 million.
And that's
our
revenue,
smallest one is
right?
1.3. So, because actually we find them to be more receptive
Yes.
on what we do than the bigger ones.
Right.
And price points differ based on the size of the agency, I assume?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Just in the number of policies. That's all it is.
Got you. Well, Kabir, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. We appreciate you guys. Please go out. Ennabl.com. That's spelled ENNABL.com. Ennabl. It's kind of a different spelling of the word enable. ENNABLE. Oh, see, I screwed it up. ENNABL.com. Go look at their stuff, see what they do, get a demo, and decide for yourself whether this technology is right for you and your agency. Thank you, Kabir.
Thank you very much, both of you. Have a great evening.
You too. Great talking to you. I hope to see you face to face soon. Okay.
I'll come down to Mobile, Alabama.
There you go. Come on. We'd love it. Guys, you were listening to the Insurance Guys podcast. And as I close every episode, rewards come from action, not discussion. Get your ass out from behind that desk today. Stop mixing TPS reports around and doing all this other stuff, and go out and become the mayor of your village. Become the insurance guy or girl in your community. Let everybody know, hey, you need insurance, don't care what it is. I want to do it. And make money for your family, for your wife, for your husband, for your kids' college fund, for your parents and your in-laws out there that are struggling today like mine. Go out there and make money for them. Write good business for the agencies that you represent, and write good business for the carriers that you represent. Bradley Flowers, I love you.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Kabir.
Thank you, Kabir. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys.
Guys, you were listening to the Insurance Guys podcast, and we love each one of you. Thank you so much for being a part of our family, and we'll see you back here real soon. Take care.